Welcome, everyone. It's Frank Klesitz. I'm here with Dave Z. And you are attending this webinar, or you're potentially watching the recording because you're interested in why Dave here fired most of his agents and switched his model to a virtual assistant model. And you read the webinar write-up. We're going to stick to that on script today. So everything that you came here to watch will be on point. We'll start a bit with Dave's story of his background, of why he decided to go this direction with his agent team model. And then we'll walk you through the whole process of how he gets his leads, how his VAs convert them, how he's doing his presentations on Zoom with the buyer, and then how he works with a virtual agent showing service so we can close deals from anywhere in the world, arguably with this model. And the whole purpose of this is profitability. How much you're bringing to the bottom line. That's difficult to do now with existing home sales fallen so much. I'm not sure what the consecutive months it's been, but something like 13 consecutive months. The amount of commission money in the system has fallen.
Yeah.
So to give, that, all the way to someone's difficult. So let me introduce you to Dave Z really quick here. Let's get started. Real estate agent in Phoenix for 20 years, sold 1,500 homes in his career. And it was 2 or 3 years ago, he decided to kind of burn that model down and shift to the model that we are going to talk about today. So Dave, why don't you take about 10 minutes here and tell everyone your story of how you ended up to what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for putting this together. This is my passion. We moved from real estate to talking about this. So the kind of the origin of this was, first and foremost, like, this is a difficult industry to be in if you want to be very involved in other areas of your life. Mainly for me, it was being a husband and then a father to 5 kids that do stuff, actually have activities. And you're like, well, how do I sell 50 homes a year and still be present? It's really difficult, right? Like, I think once you hit that 40 home mark, you're like, do I decide between money and relationships? And that's where a lot of people go to the team route, right? So I quickly got to selling 50 homes a year within my second year of doing resale. So I ran that model, being solo. And the story I'm going to tell, a quick story. This is what really hit it for me. Was there was a Memorial Day, and that was always a big holiday for me because I'm very much into family and my siblings, and we all have our own families. And that was the one holiday we got to see each other because everybody did their thing for Thanksgiving. Everybody did their thing for Christmas. I remember hosting a Memorial Day party and having to get out of the pool to go show a house because I didn't have a team. And it was like, oh, I'm going to go. I had 35 listings at the time. And there was a listing right by where we were hosting this party. It was actually at my in-laws. And I was like, cool, I'm just going to go show this really quick. So I remember getting out of the pool, drying off. And my wife's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm just going to go show a house really quick. I'm going to go make some money. I was gone for 5 hours, Frank. Missed the whole party. Showed him 8 houses.
Yep.
And I was like, well, that's real estate. Dad's got to pay the bills, right? Back then, commissions were $3 grand. This was 2011. So you're only making $3,000 or $4,000 commission. So every deal mattered. So that always stuck with me. Man, I had to give up so much to go do this activity. So that really that's kind of in my origin was I didn't like that. So I quickly, went into the team and did everything right. Did the MREA model, followed that, was slowly building it, but I was still in production, which I now know is what was keeping my finances together, was because I was still in production. And the key moments were when I started paying 20 grand a year to be in a mastermind to get to the top of the mountain. And when I saw behind the curtains, after 3 years of being in a really good mastermind, I got to meet a lot of big team leaders, people selling 1,500 homes a year, right? I've done that in my career. It was really seeing that the profitability was sub 8% for a lot of team leaders. Some of them are making 3%, 4%. And that's when I really rejected this growing a team model. And I remember being in that room, we were in Cabo, and I was like, I'm going to create Leverage Agent. I'm going to do it this way, and I'm going to try it. And that was September of 22. I pretty much burned it down. In one night, I cut $600,000 of needed commission. So I looked at buyer's agents, I looked at office space, I looked at leads I was buying, ISAs to convert them. And basically it was all right, if I can trim all of this, and I think I did 1.4, almost 1.5 million in commission. I'm like, if I could just trim it down to 800 grand, I'll make the same amount of money and I have all this less overhead. And that following year, I did $1,040,000, almost $1,050,000 of commission with 600 grand less of expenses. And that 1 year pretty much changed my financial life. I was able to go out and buy houses and park a lot of money and really have the freedom. So the following year in 23 did 76 sales. And that's become my passion since then. And when you look at profitability of selling and making 4 to 5% as a team leader to making 96% cost of good, maybe your expenses, if you can keep 80, you're 20xing, so if you're doing 76 at 80% compared to somebody at 5, it's like looking at a team leader who's doing 1,500 home sales. So that's what I started looking at. Is it easier to sell 70 with a ton of leverage or 1,500 through other people to make the same bottom line? And really what I can tell you, like now having gone full like solo operator to 13-person team back to here, the day I got rid of agents and said, here's your 300 client database that I put together for you. 88% of those are from me. These are yours. Go work them for the rest of your life. And I permanently gave up those relationships. That was kind of a like insult to injury. I was like, wow, all of that. And now I'm happy for those agents that have past clients. But in hindsight, I wish I'd have kept them. I wish I'd have kept those relationships instead of trading my time for that. So bottom line is you can stop leaving the office, you can stop having the bulk of the conversations, and you can keep the commission, and you can keep the relationship. And I can demonstrate you can do a better job for your clients. It was great. I was on a call last night with somebody. I haven't spoken to him in a little bit, and I was like, I should call him. We're closing Friday. And he was like, man, thanks for the call. He's like, I will tell you, this is my third home purchase. This has been phenomenal. You have been here every step of the way. I've never had to wonder what was going on. This has just been amazing. But he's like, I really appreciate you reaching out. And I really just did it for the relationship, not because we needed to, because it's all been handled so smoothly. And this is actually the buyer I put in escrow when I was in Thailand. And I was like, I should call him. So, crushed it on his negotiations and crushed it on his terms. But I just want to chat and, check in with him. But I get to keep that relationship. And this is a buyer I've yet to see in person, and I've yet to see the house that he's buying. But he's pretty happy with the deal that he got. I don't know if I told you, his appraisal came in at 605. We went into escrow at 530 with 4% towards buyer to buy down his rate. And it appraised at 605.
Everyone take a second on that, because there's so much that we want to discuss today is like on that buyer presentation, which we'll get to, that you do on Zoom, is you give
Right.
someone a couple of options, with the most expensive option working with you as like a senior partner. And you earned that money with that story you just shared.
Pretty
How
much.
you
He's pretty
represented.
happy.
Yeah, very happy. So if I can sum up, maybe just summarize what Dave said here, is effectively you were generating leads before and then handing the relationship over to a team member at a relatively high split. And
Right.
then they hold the brand, they hold the relationship, and poof, you got the money, but you lost the asset.
Lost the asset, and I really got a fraction of what I thought I was getting. Right.
After you factor in all the expenses on the P&L.
Yeah. And I think so I'll interject this point, like the book that changed it for me was Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. And the principle of that book is if you're a business owner and you can get somebody to do what you do at 25% of your hourly, do it. Well, the traditional real estate model, if you do a 50-50 split, cover their expenses, has you replace yourself at 80%, right? Because you're giving up 50, and then out of that remaining 50, you're covering your expenses, which a lot of times I'm seeing around 30-35%, right? So you flip the model on its head, and that's why this doesn't work. Because the business world is teaching us to replace ourselves at 25 cents. The real estate model is doing it at 85. I'm coaching some agents that do it at 95%. They're giving up their asset, and the rate that it costs them is 95% of the commission. It's just completely inverted.
So in Cabo, this is what we're going to discuss today. You made two key terrifying decisions that turned out well. But let's go back to the terrifying aspect of those decisions. One was you're going to take responsibility for generating the lead, which we'll go over your lead sources today. like we
Yep.
promised. And then you're going to hire staff, in this case, a virtual assistant for $5, $6, $7 an hour somewhere around the world, most likely the
Yep.
Philippines, to effectively follow up with the lead and bring them to a Zoom meeting with you, not in person.
Yep.
And then after you get the deal done on the Zoom meeting, you're going to use licensed runners, showing assistants, whatever it is to go show them the properties while you consult them from afar and get the deal done. That was the
Yep.
model where you hold the relationship and
Right.
levering yourself up with assistants, which the second issue was where do I find and how do I hire virtual assistant talent at these rates to do this? Is this possible? And you
Yeah.
probably have to check a lot of existing prejudices to do that. So we're going to talk about that model and get everyone clear on the model. And then we have to overcome the fear of hiring more foreigners to help you
Yeah.
from a profitability standpoint. So I have a survey. Are you ready, Dave?
Yeah. I'm
All
excited to
right.
see it.
Everyone pay attention. Everyone listen up. There should be a poll on your screen. If there isn't, put it in the chat that there is not. Please answer it. I have 3 questions here. I think it'd be interesting if we could answer these and get some audience interaction. The first question I'd like you to answer, come back over to Zoom, get off your cell phone. Come on over here real quick. Do you employ or have you employed a virtual assistant? The second question is what has your experience been? And Dave, this usually gives you a pretty good idea in the webinars of how many bots are listening for the transcript versus humans.
That's
when you
funny.
when you
Yeah,
see the survey done. Yeah.
that's funny.
What has your experience been? And then what is the primary reason for your answer? And let's just take a minute, write it, and I want to share it. I think we can address a lot of these concerns today. Just so you know, at Vyral Marketing, at our company, we had maybe 55 W-2 employees in the United States in Omaha, Nebraska at my peak. Now 2/3 of the company is overseas after COVID, and everyone works from home. And it was a huge switch at Vyral Marketing, moving to a foreign model to remain competitive. Because honestly, no one could afford to work here in the States at the rates I was able to pay and what I'm charging you as the customer. And we went foreign. So I had to really get very clear on working with foreign talent or virtual assistant talent, whatever you want to call it. So again, about 30 more seconds here. Please answer in the survey. 1, do you employ or have you employed a virtual assistant? 2, what has your experience been from 0, which is terrible, to 10 is outstanding? And then write a couple sentences and I'll share them and I'll end the poll on what the primary reason for your answer is. I know I shouldn't be drinking this, but it's the only caffeine I have around me, Dave.
I'm not judging. I've already had like 2
There you
big
go.
espressos at home.
All right. So I'll leave the poll open a little bit longer. All right. So let's start with the first fear of the model change. Give me a 10,000-foot view, and then we'll go in depth of you generate the lead to the closing. Walk me through the life cycle process. You don't have to go into too much detail. We'll go in later of how that
Yeah.
works.
Okay. So how you generate the lead really matters, I think. And so there's lots of different ways to do it. They all have pros and cons, right? And they all have different costs. So I generate leads through a number of ways. And so I can't get specific on each one, but I'm not a one-trick pony. Like I have Zillow Flex, I have Ojo, I have OpCity, I have pay-per-click leads. We do letters together. I do Vyral Marketing.
You have emails go into your
I've
database. There's
got
people
emails
clicking
going out.
links.
I just like to say, like, when we go to Maine for the summers, I fish every day. And there's no fishing in Arizona, but it's easy to fish when it's like right off your dock. And it's like have 20 poles in the water. And at any given time, something's biting. And a lot of agents just have a couple poles in the water. So when you have 20 fishing poles, they're all going to act a little differently. But either way, we've got to get them into a relationship. I think that's what people miss out on, right? It's like it's a lead, now it's a relationship. So I don't really care how I get there. But when I send a letter to you and it's got a great offer and it gets you to call me, I can do that relationship a little bit different than a forced squeeze page registration where it's like, dude, I didn't want to give you my info, but I had to see the pictures, right? So keep that in mind. So when I coach people, it's like, how are we generating these leads? But either way, we got to get into a relationship. So however the lead comes in, you got to have a robust system with a lot of automation to assist your VAs. You can't just give your VA a database and be like, go get me money. Like, go. You got to give them a robust CRM that segregates, that puts on automation, that has your messaging that goes out, and then the response is your responsibility. But at least, so if I get a new lead that comes in from, let's say, Homelight's a good partners of mine. If I can't reach that Homelight lead, they're going to get a text within a few minutes that says, Frank, hey, this is Dave Z. Homelight said you were potentially thinking about selling your property. Were you just curious
Is
about your
the
home value?
is your hire issuing that text, or is it an auto text in the CRM?
It's always auto.
Okay.
Everything is auto, but it's custom. So I think I have over 400 automations in my CRM that go out, and it's very
So
custom.
each text is customized to the lead source.
Yes.
So
One
every
of the,
lead source where it comes in has its own conversion messaging.
yes. And this is something I actually learned from, I think I was at a Chet Black event, and we had a speaker there that talked about how when President Obama won his campaign, he was and this isn't about politics, but I thought this was fascinating. He was one of the first presidents to have, I think he had 22,000 different lists for Americans. How crazy is that? That they could squeeze us into 22,000 different categories. They had white,
Oh,
males
everything.
with beards,
Yeah.
and it was like, wow. And everyone's like, he's my president. Yeah, and so again, not politics, but it was like, how do you get that divided down to where you can really
I think
speak the
that's
right
such a
message?
huge, you have a playbook of scripting of follow-up messaging for each individual lead source. And the messages come from you, Dave Z,
Yep.
not under the brand of the VA. So the VA's effectively running this under your name on the follow-up.
The VAs are me. So that's a key thing I teach is the VAs impersonate me. Now the VAs can step in as VAs, right, when they need to, right? Like for on my Clesets Direct, it's, hey, they're going to call and this is Joy from Dave's
Yeah.
office. But on my stuff, this is Dave. And then when they respond, the VAs are acting as me. So the VAs have their own number and then they are me in my CRM as my number. That's a key thing we'll talk about. So having that set up right is key for the beginning because that way the right message, right? And I know that's something you teach. It's the right message to the right market to the right with the right medium. And so I was just at a Zillow conference in Vegas last week for my Zillow Flex team, and 75% of people want text. So let's do that.
Text them.
Let's have your VA's text. Hey,
So give me an idea of the messaging. Is it like, hey, it's Dave. I saw that you expressed interest in this. Would you like to schedule a time or would you like to meet with me? Give me what's the
yeah,
main theme here?
we want it to be very soft, very not walking like when you walk into Nordstrom's, like Mondays are date days for me. So like Julia and I went out yesterday and we walk into Nordstrom. It's like, what can I help you buy right now? And I just want to look. So, how do you feel when a salesperson approaches you? So we want it to be, hey, Frank, this is Dave Z with eXp Realty. Homelight asked us to reach out to you. They said you were potentially thinking about selling your home. Were you just curious about your home's value, or were you actually thinking about making a move? Like
Beautiful.
we give them the out right there. Like, were you potentially considering maybe thinking about maybe, right? Like make it very
Yeah.
easy. And then most of the responses then are going to be, well, we were just kind of curious. Amazing. We're going to get you that home value. What had you curious about your home's value? Like just kind of go with that. People were very serious. They're like, no, we're interviewing 4 agents and we're going to sell our house and we're moving to Boise, but you can come interview, right? Like it's going to cut to the chase. So we make it very soft. That's going to go out with automation. The VA can manage that. Then ultimately, here's what people have to understand on this call or watching it. This is not mailbox money. This isn't, oh, I'm sitting in my office and checks just show up. This method is going to really focus your time and attention to where if you can give it 2 hours a day, you're going to sell a lot of houses, but you know exactly where to spend those 2 hours because the VAs are going to segregate the dirt from the gold.
So
But
after
we
they
got
shift through it, that messaging, they find someone who is high motivation,
Mhm.
but then they're pitching a meeting with you on Zoom, ultimately,
Yeah,
your model.
yeah. So if
Speak on
they
that a bit.
say, yeah, we're thinking about selling our home, great. So then think of the herd mentality. So this is a very important thing when you're pitching appointments. We never pitch appointments. We pitch opportunities. We pitch an invitation. Okay, so you're thinking about selling your home. What we've done with other sellers who contact HomeLight, wherever the lead comes in from, we herd them together because people want to be part of a group. They feel smarter. Like we all go to Amazon and be like, oh, 4.3 stars out of 1,500 people I don't know. That carries value. Frank, that's great. You're thinking about selling your home. What we do with other people that have also contacted HomeLight is we schedule a strategy session where over Zoom, we can tell you precisely what your home is going to sell for, your odds of selling, and what the cost would be in this given market. Would that be helpful? I'm not asking for a listing presentation.
Strategy session to help them talk through
We want to
the
give you your odds of selling, what we think it would sell for, and what the cost would be so you know how much you would make. What we've done with other people in your position, and you want to be like other people, is we do this. Would that be helpful? Yeah, that would be very helpful. Great. I've got time on this day, this day, this day. So if the VAs look at the calendar, boom, I got time. So we're not asking to come out to their house, get it all cleaned up, right? Like, I'm not ready for another stranger to come to my house. Let's start with a strategy session. Let's figure out our odds of selling. Let's figure out the cost. Like, what do sellers really care about, right? And so we do that on Zoom. Now, if it's a buyer, we do the kind of the same script. Great. What we've done with other buyers who are just kind of curious and looking right now is we just and we put together a strategy meeting to see how you can save a lot of money in this market and not overspend and how we can help you find the best deal. Would that be helpful?
Dave, how exciting was it? And speak to this when you continue to generate leads with all of the ways that everyone can learn online how to do it. And then effectively, let's call the VAs for the sake of our discussion. Some may say ISA, inside sales assistant. I just call them appointment setters.
Appointment setters.
So your appointment setters are responding, getting them to talk to you, assessing motivation, and basically seeing if they want to talk to you, and then arranging a time just to have a strategy session discussion.
It's a
Were you,
strategy
were,
session.
were you doing that before 2022?
Yeah, that was part of some of my coaching and masterminds was getting that messaging right. And I learned a lot from those groups. And what they were doing, where I broke off, was they were having their agents do it or they were having ISAs do it. And it was just very expensive. So I just took the same coaching, teaching. I said, well, if I can do it, there's no reason somebody who's probably smarter than me in the Philippines, honestly, or as smart as me, there's no reason I can't teach them to do it. And their cost of labor is just far less. Let's just get them to do it. And here's the beautiful thing, Frank. They actually do it, and agents don't do it.
Well,
Agents
because
don't
it's
do
paid
it.
hourly and not on.
And you can say, I asked you to do 50 invites yesterday and you only did 42. I'm going to have to let you go. Try doing that with a 1099 agent. Like
So let's
labor
let's
laws.
let's let's go deeper on what we just shared here, because there's just one thing that anyone here can walk away with is like maybe I just need an appointment setter. Maybe I don't need the whole showing system yet, but if I could just get someone calling my leads. I mean, when I talk to top agents around just anyone around the country, like what's your number one problem? It's like my agents won't get enough calls done.
Yeah, they don't want to do it. They
Yeah.
don't like rejection. They don't like rejection.
So
So
you
most agents are a high I and a low D. Most agents that are on a team, not team leaders. Team leaders are mostly a high D. It's I don't care if you don't like me. But you go out and hire a very bubbly, personable, I want to be in open houses. They're terrified of rejection. So you're asking them to do an activity that is so uncomfortable for them that you're going to review their logs and be like, what is wrong with you? Why you're just leaving so much money on the table
Yeah.
because they're terrified of the activity. So give it to somebody who's not terrified of it and their income isn't associated with it. And if they won't do it, you move on to somebody else.
Good job.
That is the key disconnect,
Yeah.
is getting somebody to do these things that don't want to do it.
So let's shift to that. Here's the survey. So 60% of you have a VA, 40% of you don't. Um, 4 out of you had an outstanding experience. The experience is mixed all over the place. Looking for someone to take off the workload. My VA is doing great with outbound and inbound calls and client management. I gave a 5 because I haven't leveraged this yet beyond a showing partner and transaction coordinator. It'd be better if I knew what to delegate. They were working another job along with mine, so they were doing 2 jobs at the same time,
Oh
didn't
yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
We have 2 assistants, one is a 10. We'd price one if we could. Great. I'm not busy enough yet. I'd never hired because I've had a lot of negative experiences where my VA didn't free up much of my time. Great commitment and task load, but missed some of the details and finer considerations with detailed expertise and precise industry. That's why they set me putting for a senior partner. Okay. So why don't you share with me some of the fears you had to spend, I think, between $5, $8 an hour, depends upon if you hire a director, you hire a staffing company, of taking these very expensive leads
Right.
and putting someone in a foreign country on following up with them. Talk to some of your fears you had with that and how you overcame that fear and how you got it effective from more of a human standpoint.
Yeah, the fear was real, and so it didn't like it's just been a constant evolution, right? In different iterations. So in the beginning, I was doing all of that, right? So if we look at the beginning, I was like, man, forget it. I'm taking all this back. I am doing all the messaging. And then I was delegating all the tasks to the VAs. So it was real. And then as I was like, well, I don't want to do that anymore. That's too much. It was more out of like necessity. It was more like out of let's try other people. But yeah, I was afraid they wouldn't understand it, they wouldn't get it, and after 20 years of doing real estate, at that time I was like 18. I'm like, no one's going to do it better than me. But the idea really came about as it. You don't need phenomenal salespeople if you have a phenomenal sales process, and that's what I really discovered. We overpay dynamite salespeople because we have a crappy process or no process. And we're like, here, turn this into something. And for that, I will give you half of it. But if you can control the process all throughout, it's plug and play. Great marketing, great messaging. Messages go out every time, no matter what. The system's always going to send it out on automation. And then you have 3, 4, 5 people managing that and actually typing the words back, whether they're good or bad. They're just responses. So once I saw that I could put the process together, then it's plug and play. And that's what I've been able to duplicate with, I think, at like 140, 100, 145 agents. So far, I've helped duplicate this model because if you get the process right, we don't need the right people. But I was scared of that. But it was just, I think, burnout. Like I would tell you, my model is a burnout in a different way. Not, I'm not driving around, I'm not doing that, but you're just like you're your own ISA, right? You got to go through all those appointments. So um, does that make
So like,
sense?
yeah,
Yeah.
total sense. So let's sum up what we've learned so far here in the past 30 minutes. Generating leads, having a lead follow-up uh, process for each lead source, and having a dedicated 40-hour week focused person following up to assess motivation and basically pushing for an appointment. What I like to show you here is I did this in my real estate business. I was in the real estate game for 3 years buying property. And we did, if you factor in the wholesales and everything else, it was about 300 transactions in 3 years we were able to scale up to. And this is something over the weekend. So here's an appointment report I got over the weekend back in the day of my main appointment setter, Maria, who was the head for $8 an hour. And then the staff that was her assistants making calls was 5. Over the weekend in the markets we serve, this is a real report. These are all the leads that came in from the lead sources. As you can see, a lot of direct mail, Dave.
Yep.
So those are the new calls that came in about, I want to sell my house. So over the weekend, they made 250 attempts, which is attempt to me as a phone call, email, and voicemail. And of the 250 attempts, they got 132 coming replies, which is really good contact rate, but it's a very expensive lead source. And then of the 132 people that got back to us, there were 14 appointments set. And here's the lead source and the name and the date and the time and the address of all of the appointments with sellers. And it could be with buyers too, if you have buyer lead sources that were set. I'm sure you have some type of report every day coming out like this, Dave, right?
Yeah.
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 So think about what would be possible if you can get an appointment setter following up to schedule meetings for you. Right,
Right.
Dave? Okay,
Right. Right.
let's move on.
Yep.
Now you
Okay.
have this meeting.
Yep.
Explain the presentation.
Yep. So we're then going to do a very good virtual presentation. I have a very good slide deck. I'm a big believer that people in one ear, out the other, seeing is believing. I'm a big believer in self-discovery. So if we can lead our consumer to the self-discovery of what it takes to either sell their home or buy their home, they're going to be much more successful. They're going to be much more likely to transact, and they're much more likely to do it with you versus just touring properties, going out to the house, right? So my strategy session is all about getting them to understand what it's going to look like. And for sellers, I want them to show them it's not as easy as they think, and it's usually not. So I put a lot of fear into sellers in a good, healthy way. Like there's nothing better than having a listing appointment that says, Frank, I've done all this data, I've poured into everything. And based on the last 5 years in your market, you have about a 61% chance of selling your house. Well, how do you think that feels to be a seller? When you're like, whoa, 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 I have 100% desire to sell my house and move here. Okay, but this is just based on historical data of how many people buy, how many people sell, how many active. We're going to do an absorption rate. This is how many actives we have versus how many buyers we suspect. So have that good presentation. But the key question for me is always going to be, so Frank, based on this data, what price do you need to assign to your house to create value to a buyer and to get them to pick your home over the other 19?
The
They're like,
seller picks the
oh,
price first. Is that the
what's
key?
that?
The seller throws out the first price.
Oh yeah. They're like, well, we're curious what you think it's worth. Oh, I know what it's worth. You looked me up. I mean, here's my Zillow sheet. You see how many homes I've sold. I know where it's at. But I'm curious based on knowing that only 2 of these 17 are going to sell, right? There's only 2 buyers in the next 30 days. That's what we know. And there's 17 for sale. What price would you assign to create value in the market? And then we'll get into what I think it's worth. But have a very beautiful listing presentation. But you've got to create dependency on you. So when you show a seller those odds and how you have overcome this for 1,000+ clients or whatever your story is, they're going to say, well, you know what? Maybe this guy's commission is fair, right? I've got a 1.1 coming up soon. And when I did my meeting with them, he was like, I asked him about commission. He was a salesperson. He was like, frankly, I think you guys are way overpaid. And I've sold most of the homes I sell, I do myself. And when I ran those odds and we got to my commission screen, he agreed to pay me 3.5%. He went from, I'm not going to pay commission to, I will pay your 3.5% listing fee.
And your ability to have those conversations in this market where you're not delegating those listing presentations or buying presentations to a junior agent and
Yeah.
you're having them on
Yes.
Zoom anywhere. Gosh, how much money has that made you not delegating that down?
You look at your conversion rate, you look at your cost to acquire leads. Like I was able to audit my books and go, I have to buy 4 times as many leads for these agents than I do have to for myself. Right. So not only does it clean up your conversion, but your costs. Like I've been able to really reduce costs for people because they're like, man, I convert at this rate and my people convert at this rate. Right. So now you're going to buy 25% of the leads that used to be buying. We're going to cut that expense. And that's where the profitability
So on the
really
sell
comes out.
side for a presentation, showing them the stats so they throw out the first number is probably a really key thing to work into your listing presentation.
I believe so, because I believe most sellers are looking for that price as they interview multiple agents. And when you flip the script, you differentiate and you really do provide value. This is really great data for them to go, whoa,
And how
okay.
do you pitch pricing? Like with a flexible commission menu? How do you just all
Pricing for me
pricing's
is,
negotiable, but I was
it's
curious
a
how you
range.
present it.
Yeah, pricing to me is a range. Like if I had to intrinsically price your home and give it to a bank and do an appraisal, it's probably going to be somewhere around here. but it's flexible because we're asking a buyer to buy it. We could be surprised on the low end, we could be surprised on the high end, but this is your range. I always give a range, right? And people are like, that sounds right. I'm like, in your neighborhood, you're looking at 950 to 1.1. Wouldn't you agree? That's kind of the range. We're going to zero it in. And then I use gas stations as an analogy. I go, you remember when gas was really high and now it's come down a little bit, it fluctuates. Like, could you imagine a gas station owner holding out for the highest gas price that ever existed because they need it for their moving expenses? They need it for this, right? Every seller tells you
I
why they
like
need
that. That's
money.
a good metaphor.
Well, don't they need that too? But they can't because there's 3 other gas stations surrounding them. So what gas is selling for today matters more. And these are your 17 gas stations. You're going to be the 18th. Does it matter what that home sold for a year ago? I don't think so. I think you have to create value in the eyes of the buyer to get them to pick you over somebody else.
And you still
And
have an agent or two on your team, and you say, look, you can work with a junior agent, or will you share how you position commission of maybe working with the junior agent versus a
I,
senior agent?
I do. So this shows up more on the buy side because I keep the listings. The
Okay.
listings I keep.
Listings are
So
yours. Now we're talking
listings are
buy.
mine. Yep, because I don't typically have to go to houses for listings, so I don't really need them. Um, but on the buy side, the way I present the commissions is same thing on the buy side. I'm going to have a great slide deck. Early on, I'm going to get into, and I'll answer this, but I think it's important for me to tell you how I get there. How's that? I'm going to tell you kind of how I get there, then I'll answer that commission. So on the buy side, the same thing. We're going to go through a beautiful online presentation, and I am going to show them early on. I want to tell you why I think you're going to have really a great experience working with me. This is why XYZ lead source trusts me. This is why OpCity. This is why HomeLight. Or whatever, however they
Oh, because
go
they came in
Google.
from that brand.
Yeah, that's why they like to work with me. This is based on consumer feedback. We're gonna create a very easy process for you to see homes 7 days a week on demand. You're never gonna hear the word from no. Plus, you get me as a local hyper expert. I know
Hey,
the
Dave,
market.
real quick, check your mic. Is your mic dying?
Could be. Do you see it? You
There you
hear me
go. You're good. You're good. Keep going.
now? Let me flip it. So again, tie in that lead source and say, I think this is why you're gonna have a great experience. And the traditional realtor, and I have a screen that shows chaos. They're doing this, 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 and this. I think it's critical you work with somebody who has all of this covered. And then I show a picture of me with my 5 virtual assistants and like an army in the background of just dark shadowed out figurines. It's not an army, it's like people. I'm like, so the reason I think you're going to have a good experience with me is I have 1,600 realtors that have contracted with me in the Phoenix area to open doors, to show doors. And these are my salaried employees, and you have me. You're getting all of this. And then I go, my next transition on my slide is a whole flight crew on the tarmac in front of a big jet. And I go, I want you to think of my real estate process as kind of like flying on an airplane. You have who I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the most important person on that plane. It's the pilot. And there's a little gray hair, and they're a little bit older. They've been around a little bit longer. And I got a little bit gray coming in. And I always joke, but I still have a 7-year-old, so I
Dude,
still dye my beard a little
this
bit,
gas station and pilot metaphor is so good.
right? So I'm like, whenever I fly, I take my first thing is to look into the cockpit. I'm like, cool, it's not an 18-year-old who loves planes and just got
Yeah.
their license.
Yeah.
Hey, why should you be my realtor? Because I love people. Are you good at negotiating? Do you know the market inside and out? So I go, so I want to make sure I have a great pilot. Then I'm like, okay, who are my flight attendants? But I really don't care who fuels up the plane and who checked my luggage. I'm just glad it's getting done efficiently. That's why you're going to love working with me, because I am your pilot. And so right there on the slide, it says, meet your key 3 people. I am your pilot. I always negotiate this, and I'm always your main point of contact. I will never delegate you to somebody else. Now, behind the scenes, my VAs are me, but not in what matters. I'm talking to them when it matters. And then you're going to have the flight attendants are my 1,600 realtors that open doors. They are happy in homes. They don't want to pilot a plane. They don't even want to fly planes. So let's not let them fly. They're not going to negotiate for you ever, ever. It's always going to be me. And then we have our air traffic controller. Stevie, she's going to be very involved on your contracts and your timelines and your utility setup and when to be at escrow and when to do that. She is going to be one step ahead of you on all of this. Now, that's a little different than a lot of people have experienced real estate. Is there any reason this wouldn't work for you?
Dave, that sounds great. I hope you have a lot of gray for this transaction. This is going to get
Right?
crazy. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Help me out.
So doing that allowed me to be in Disneyland last week and I put a 1.45 million in escrow. Don't know what they look like because they didn't want to Zoom. They want to do a phone call. Don't know what the house looks like. And they got a great deal. It's probably worth 1.8, right? And so I am delivering on that value of negotiating really hard, right? And the realtor on that house that I just got in escrow a couple of days ago, he's been around forever, and so have I. He did 5,000 bank-owned homes. I did 700-800 short sales. We know each other. I'm like, I need to get a good deal on this one, you know. And that's when this NAR shift came out, and I got a lot of flack for this on the Zoom. I said the biggest shift I think will come about is the Kobe Bryants are going to get paid like Kobe Bryants, and the rookies are going to get paid like rookies, and that is fair.
Well, that's the
Oh,
whole
we're
idea
not.
behind the buy side was everyone was getting paid the same, arguably.
Everyone's getting
And
paid the
now you have
same.
to fight for your own money,
Yeah.
at least the way they want to structure it.
And so and I got, I mean, people were on a webinar and they a couple hundred agents on there. And it was like, why are you hating on new agents? I just said, we're going to become resume based if it's not a deep relationship. Now, if it's your buddy, probably going to pay you. But if you're competing in the market space,
With strangers.
strangers,
Yeah.
this is my fee and this is why. Now, and so let's kind of talk about that. You asked me about the buyer commission. So here's my 3-tiered structure. I go through the buyer presentation. I show them how it's going to be a great experience. I slip in some stories there, like, hey, my negotiation, I use the absorption rate to counteract the buyer because I knew the odds, right? So to counteract the seller, because we knew the odds and we exploited that and said, listen, and I'll call the listing agent. I mean, Frank, you know, there's 22 homes on the market just like yours. We only sell 3 of these a month. And a lot of agents are like, what are you talking about? So that's why our price is coming in really low. So I give some of those stories, how we're going to try to get it low. We're going to do all of that, walk through the process. And then before I go into my buyer commission presentation, I let them say, so do we want to work together? And I have a slide that says, do you think we're a good fit? I'm like, great. These are the 2 things I'm looking for. Nice people, loyal to the relationship. What does that look like? And then I say, what do you know about real estate commissions? And that's from a book, Phil Jones, exactly what to say. You know, one of his key words is asking a person, what do they know? It really slows them down. So what do you think? What have you heard? So start using that language. Boy, does it change when you say, what do you know? And based on their answer, kind of tells you where to go. But after their answer, say, yeah, you're right. So here's the way I see it, Frank. You have 3 options. That is the way I see it. As a buyer, you can go directly to the listing agent. Heard this NAR lawsuit, they're the only ones that can open a door without having a relationship with you. You don't have to sign anything, call a listing agent. I mean, I've carried so many listings through my career. You know how many calls we get if people want to work with a listing agent? And if that's you and you want to work directly with a listing agent, I then pull up on my screen my listing agreement that shows I get paid 1% for an unrepresented buyer by the seller. There's a spot in the contract that says, if I work with an unrepresented buyer, I get 1%. So I show them that. I go, just so you know, you probably aren't aware of this, but you're going to pay 1% to the listing agent. Does that feel good? Do you want the seller's realtor to make an extra 6 grand? And you think you're getting it? You're not. So we offer that. I have a clerical option where we can just fill in the blanks. We can, maybe you've bought 10 homes and you're savvy and you want to use your inspector and your people, and you just want me to make sure the paperwork is done right and it's legally, right? But we're not going to do all these things that we talked about. That's 1%. Just like paying a listing agent. But I'm not going to be involved on the negotiations. I'm not going to be involved on what it's worth. I'm literally, when you say, Dave, what do you think? I go, I'm really not hiring. I'm not here to think. I'm here to
I don't
write.
know. Yeah.
So totally fine. Now you saw my value and what I bring. I'm asking you to pay me 2.95%.
That's my fee, but the way I see it is this is Zajinsky and Associates or Dave Z and Associates. You're getting Dave Z. You're getting somebody who's been through 1,500 home sales. I've had buyers die, sellers die, homes flood, homes burn down, sellers refuse to get out. I'll
Yeah.
navigate that. If you don't value my expertise, I'm not offended. And that's okay. If you're like, no, we don't want that. I have a junior associate, kind of a law firm option. You can do for 1.95 work with somebody who sells 5 or 6 homes a year. And they're going to get you into houses and do all of that. Which of those three do you really think you resonate with?
And I want to stop you right here, Dave, because I want to interject something for the audience of what the person is now buying. All price elasticity in professional services. So when you're selling an intangible service like this, and pricing is it's not tangible. I can't like touch and feel and compare the physical thing. The price elasticity in a professional service in this very moment is how much certainty they want. Certainty and how they want to move up and feel that certainty to work with Dave and what you're selling. The more certainty you can sell that person this situation, the higher the price is going to go. That's the feeling you're the merchant of in this moment. So go on, Dave.
Yeah.
What do they choose? What do people choose most of the time?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. When I look in my last 8 buyer presentations, it's been 7, we want you. 1, I'm going to get back to you. And that was somebody I was writing a ton of offers for in the years past. He was actually banned from using Shawami in my system, but he circled back. Everybody was crazy. Everybody was offering too much, and he was going to make a mistake. And once he got back into my calendar, and I showed him those fees. I just haven't heard back, and no problem, right? So I was basically 100% with new people went with me, right? And I was so detached from the outcome. I'm like, you just tell me, either one is fine. The reason I'm okay with it, now some of you may think I'm crazy. Well, here's what I do. My transaction coordinator is licensed. She's going to write those for me. And I've already said this is a junior agent. She's done some transaction. She's going to write those for me for a very small fee. So I'm going to keep, like, let's call it 85% of the commission and not be involved. On the other one, same thing, we're just going to write it. I look at my life in dollar per hour. That's it. So if I look at the buyer I wrote in Thailand, or even this last one, I bet I'm under 3 hours total between the consult, between the writing the offer. So we're talking $5,000 an hour. If you can get to 3,000 to 4,000 an hour, you can really control your life and just say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. That's where you start buying back your time. So either option is going to keep me at that dollar per hour, right? And that's why I think it's fair. I'm giving you very little time here because you're just asking me to write the offer for you. I'm giving you less time here because somebody I have to manage is doing it. I'm giving you a lot more time here because I have to really dig deep on it.
So you send in the contract over the Zoom meeting, they sign whatever they got to sign. Now you're off to the races.
And we're off.
How do you transition now to go see a house with somebody?
Yep. So then I have this awesome buyer engagement email I took from a big agent that does a ton of business. I think he closed 85 in 1 year out on a team. He has a beautiful buyer engagement email he gave me. And so that email goes out and it sets the expectations of what we're doing. Frank, Katie, great to meet you guys. I'm so happy we're working together. Per our phone call, here is a list of homes I think work well for you. Remember that you have the right to change your custom searches on your website. Watch this video here. It's a bomb video. It's about 2 minutes. This is how you set up your own search. I've already told them, like, they're going to control their search process. These are the top 5 must-haves you said you needed in order to move forward with a home. When we find your dream home, we will then get back together to write a winning and favorable offer. Those are my words. Like, I'm not here to write deals. We'll get you a deal, but I want to get a winning and favorable offer. Remember to book any home you would like to see on our website. Here is a 2-minute video, and actually demo it on the buyer presentation. Once they say, yeah, we're going to work with you, I'm like, great. Here's the best thing you and I can do right now is to learn how to schedule showings on my website, because I want you to get in a home 7 days a week. And I actually show them on Zoom how to log into my site, schedule a showing. I actually show up the back end of my CRM. I'm like, look, I run your home sale like a medical office. It's all charted. It's all here. And then I click, I want to see this home. And then we see it on my screen. And then, like, I go into the CRM. I'm like, look, See how that's logged in there? I have a list of all the homes that we've ever looked at. I'm going to keep this organized. If you send me a screenshot of a home on realtor.com, it's going to take a little extra work. But if you schedule a showing, it will be done. And everybody does that. Nobody sends me a screenshot. So when that is done, now that's a fail safe where the VAs now are going to take it from there. So once I'm done, I essentially turn it over to the virtual assistants to then manage it until I have to hop back in to get a right offer. I mean, it was like 8 o'clock at night. We've been at the Disneyland park all day last week. And I get a text message that says, yeah, we want to write an offer on this property. I don't even know where we're at, what we're doing. Like, and then we can get into that. I know we only have 10 minutes left, but we got to get into the meat and potatoes of kind of where it goes from there. But that's my commission structure. Any more questions on that? Or we want to get into the transaction?
Yeah. Handle the transaction for 5 minutes, and then we'll talk about options for people, what they can buy and where they can go to execute this.
Okay. So now that they've been engaged, we've got their buyer broker stored in our CRM. It's a link, so I could see it. We then change our tagging that they're now approved for Shawami. If they haven't signed a buyer broker, it says not approved for Shawami. Now that we have that, my VAs are going to move that thing forward. They're going to say, Frank, what do you think of this house? We're going to watch the homes that they search for, and then we're going to regurgitate it back to them, right? We're going to keep that relationship going. So instead of me following up, seeing where they're at, the VAs are going to now text as Dave. Frank, it's Dave. How's it going? Any changes to your home search, right? We're just keeping that moving forward. We're just slowly moving the relationship, and it's being done by the VAs. Then if they look at a home 5 times or more, we're going to say, Frank, what about this home here in Warner Estates, Warner Ranch? You want to go see it because they looked at it 5 times. We're going to be proactive to ask them to go see it. And what you'll find is psychologically, a lot of agents don't even want to ask to show houses because they don't want to miss softball with their kids. They don't want to miss soccer. So they're like dreading the phone call. Oh crap, I got to go show a house. Like I've heard that in a team setting where we're all there for happy hour, the phone rings, someone's like, crap, I got to go show a house. So VAs are promoting getting out to go see houses. And then when they say, yeah, I do want to see that home. Great. Are there any
Yeah,
others?
it's like the incentives aren't there to proactively.
They don't want to.
No, but
And
like
then they say it in
under
front
your
of
model,
you.
you're proactively pitching showings.
You are like pushing it like crack cocaine. You want a little hit? Like, let's go.
You know,
Let's
for
go.
somebody that's
See what
not
happens.
that deep in the industry, when I hear that, that is like so. Oh,
It's crazy how much we self-sabotage
yeah.
when you hate the activity.
Hmm.
Oh, it's Sunday. I just wanted to be home and watch some football. Now I got to go
Yeah.
show a house. Well, we
Yeah, you're not
do that.
following up proactively pitching, let's go see a house now all the time.
No,
But your team
no.
is.
We are
That's why you're
pushing
moving
it.
houses.
That's why we're moving. We're pushing it because you're not doing it. So I used to call it spinning the Shawami wheel. It's like spin that wheel, no whammies, and boom, let's go show houses. So they're pushing it. They go out there, they go see it. If they like it, because we say, so here's what would happen. Buyer submits a request to go see a home. And I show people this live in my CRM. You know, this happened when I was in Thailand. They go see the house. Then they say, great, you're going to meet Robbie. So the VA would go into the MLS, go in and book the showing, then go into Shawami, find the agent, then bring that back to the buyer and say, Frank, you're going to meet Robbie. This is Robbie's number. Call me when you're done or text me if you want to write an offer. If you don't, tell me you don't. Then they say, I liked it. I want to write an offer. The VA will reach out to the listing agent. Frank, this is Robbie from Dave Z's office. We just showed the buyer through Robbie. They're very interested. Do you have any offers? And is there anything super important to the seller that we should know about before we consider writing an offer? They get all that done. They will then do a CMA on the property automatically. So for that particular buyer, I woke up like 7 a.m. that one day and I was like, oh, I got an offer to write. And I had the home comped. I was able to quickly see what it was worth. I already had an introduction to the agent. Hey, Dave will be calling you. Called, got the terms put together, called my buyer. That whole process took about 35 minutes. Talked to the agent, talked to the buyer, and then I shot a quick video on my cell phone to my licensed transaction coordinator. Now you can do this with VAs. I love having an American-based one. So I have one realtor on my team, one transaction coordinator, and I pay her $225 a file. And I shoot the video and I say, this is the house, these are the terms, go, 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 go. Takes me like 45, 50 seconds, sends it to her. Typically within about 15 minutes, I get an offer back in my inbox. I review it, looks good, execute it, offer sent, and we're in. And then from there, I have process videos on everything, all in a sequence, all managed by the VAs. Congratulations, we're in escrow. Here's what to expect. Congratulations, we've passed inspections. Here's what to expect. Congratulations, your home appraised. Your home didn't appraise. We need to have a conversation. Film a professional video for everything they're going to go through and send it ahead of time. Play offense instead of scrambling to play defense. Stop having the same conversations over and over and over again. Put it into an email, put it into a bomb, and then have them watch it. Call me if you have questions. I'm going to be calling you. People are like, got your video, saw that the home appraised, we're good. So that's going to all be managed by your staff with you just shooting some videos. And then we're going to use Shawami throughout the process whenever they need to get back out there. And then as we get to inspections, so let's talk about home inspections. I believe it's a disservice for realtors to go there.
1 minute.
Okay. Stop going to home inspections. You're not a home inspector. And this is what I'll say in my presentation. Buyer realtors like to go to home inspections to protect their commissions. I think you deserve privacy in your home with a home inspector and ask the tough questions like, should I cancel? Is this too big of a repair? And you don't want your licensed agent who's going to make commission to be standing there over the shoulder. So we're going to give you privacy in the home to inspect it with your home inspector and let us know if you would like to cancel. And then we have a whole process for that. Like to really, if you do it right, nobody's calling you on a Friday at 7 o'clock saying emergency, right? And then I believe buyers need to take responsibility for their own homes, for the repairs. I'm not a licensed inspector, so I don't know if the roof repair was done right, but for $75, we'll get our home inspector back out there and you two can walk it on the final walkthrough. So we get our inspector to go back out for a fee.
That's
And that
nice.
keeps you from being, and I think that's what they deserve, not me. I'm there to close it. I
Yeah.
think most realtors are there to make sure it closes, honestly. So
I want to share just a couple of insights and we'll wrap this up just from a different perspective. I think if we were to sum up what's happening with Dave here and in the industry is Dave shifted from what was taught with like a 1099 team, which just kind of came from a 1099 brokerage, and you're seeing the model turn into just a consulting firm. So Dave, an easy way to say this is you took your real estate team and turned it into a real estate consulting firm. And these are all the career paths of like an intern, an undergrad, an associate, a junior, a partner, a director, and what they call them. It's like, do you want to bill at the partner level rate working with Dave, or do you want to bill at the associate rate or the entry level consultant? This is how pretty much every professional service firm works. And I think it's kind of hands being forced to move that way in the real estate industry, just from my perspective of
I
looking
think so
outside the
too.
industry. So I
Yeah.
just think if someone's looking for a model to understand, like this is the way they viewed everything, is go look how consulting firms are set up and different billing rates of the level of judgment and expertise which you shared. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
And I'll add to that. One of the things I spoke at my very first speak at a conference on this. I said I was looking for a distribution system the way Amazon and Tesla, the two richest men in the world, don't give up 50% of the deal. They have a very cheap labor rate to distribute their product. And between VAs and Shawami, we can have a distribution system. And it's billed at the appropriate rate. It's inappropriate to give up 85% of the comp to get something distributed that you could do yourself. So I do want to address, somebody put in there, Shawami and NAR. Shawami and NAR, they're totally compatible. We have to have buyer agreements signed. So we have that before we ever use Shawami. And there's nothing in the NAR language anywhere that states that you can't delegate showings. So there's nothing in any of that language that says if Dave Z has the buyer broker, then Dave Z always has to show. So we can delegate as long as they have a buyer broker signed with me and we have a licensed person opening the door. So I probably spent an hour and a half on the phone with Matt Kucharko and Shawami when this broke. And we were like August 1st, that Sunday, he and I were on the phone and we poured through we're not attorneys, but nobody can show us where you can't delegate showings. You just have to have a signed buyer broker agreement.
Dave, is your leverage agent blog live?
Yeah, leverageagent.org.
Okay. So just let's wrap up with what people can do. If you want to talk to Dave, Dave has two options for you. He can help you find a virtual assistant using how you done it. And you also have some consulting materials that can be purchased to go deeper into all the processes you built of how everything here runs from like a
Yeah.
operations manual.
Yeah, I've helped probably 140 plus agents implement this, and some do it right away with just a phone call. Some of them want it kind of done for you. So I put together like a 6-week course of everything. I go basically an hour, hour and a half deep on all phases. But the key to this is virtual assistants. So that's mostly what I help people do. Go find the VAs, help you hire them, and then I train them. We'll spend 2 weeks in our system. So implementing this, we grade them, we teach them how to compost. Like, we basically just teach them how to do it. Most people, when I start coaching people on this, they're like, I don't want to deal with the VA aspect of it. So we handled the training and the system. We basically give them all the SOPs so they learn how to do it. We teach you how to do it too. So, but if you're smart and you're on this call, most of you are, I can figure this out on your own. But I think I'm pretty smart. I've got professional film footage. I still hire Frank to do Vyral for me because it gets done.
I mean, look at your camera. You're like top-notch camera and mic. Yeah.
So I have a full-time video editor. I have all the right equipment, yet I still hire you to get it done because it actually gets done. And it's the best money I can spend for when I look at that cost to go to Vyral, it's getting done. And so that's what I can help people do, is actually get it done and launched and implemented, or just go do it yourself, right? But
Good.
it
So
works.
go check out Dave for a VA. Go check out Dave for his consulting program that will go deeper on this. I think it's great. You know, it's what I did here at Vyral. I love the I think the whole real estate industry, well, not the whole, but the people at the top will be moving more to a consulting firm model and maybe away, generally speaking, from the team in a traditional sense, especially on the buy side as things play out. Because I love what you're doing. I want to share it, and we should share it together. And if you're interested in viral marketing to stay in touch with your database with video, I put a link here where you can opt in for a consultation and get copies of everything Dave's doing. We have permission to share it with you. How's that, Dave?
This was great, man. I'm glad we could talk about this. At my passion, at the heart of this is
Change your life.
Change lives, make more
Change
money,
your life.
sell less homes, be present as a spouse, partner, whatever, and don't feel bad about it because you're getting them taken care of. So that's my passion. I want to see people's marriages and their relationship with their kids flourish.
How many
and
kids
not
you have?
choose money or time. So
Share the audience how many kids you have.
we have 5. So we got
5 kids.
We have 4 girls and a boy, and it's just amazing for me to spend the summers in Maine with them when it's 198 degrees in Phoenix and we're on the ocean at 70 degrees. Take them to Disney, and I got to work.
Can't show homes in Phoenix and Maine.
It doesn't feel fair, but I mean, after 2 years, when it first started, I was like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe it works, but it does. Like, the more you think about it, I now know. I think this is the best, kindest, fairest model you can run. I used to delegate to agents that I didn't think were very good. In hindsight, I can look back. Some of them had lawsuits. Some of them I didn't think had the best interest in mind, right? It just makes sense to me. You maintain the most important things, you keep the relationships, and you give your clients the best service to be in homes 7 days a week. Like, where do we go? How does this go wrong, right? So I know we're pioneering something that 5-10 years from now is going to be the normal. It's going to be great. So right now we're getting overpaid, in my opinion, to still be able to make 3% on $1.5 million deal. That I think that might change. So I think there's a window here to make 3, 4, 5 years of really great money before things change.
Dave, good job. Thanks for your time today. We'll end it there.
Yeah. Thanks for doing this.
See you guys. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.